People love to psychoanalyze black. If you wear it a lot, people assume you're sad. If your room is dark, they assume you're depressed. If your style is minimal, they assume you're going through something. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't say that because they understand you. They say it because black makes them uncomfortable, because black doesn't entertain them. It doesn't perform. It doesn't beg for attention. It just sits there, quiet, certain. Not the toxic kind. Not the I need power kind. The kind that comes from a nervous system that learned early. If I don't control my environment, my mind gets too loud. So black becomes a boundary, a visual no, a mental exhale. And that's why the biggest misconception about people who love black is this. People think black is an emotion. But for many people, black is a strategy to reduce stimulation, a strategy to stop the outside world from spilling into your brain, a strategy to feel safe without explaining yourself. And yes, this is the part that sounds controversial, but it's true. Some people don't wear black because they're fragile. They wear black because they're disciplined, because they don't want their mood to be controlled by colors. They don't want their identity to be decided by trends. They don't want to dress like a mood board for strangers. They want one thing: clarity. But here's where it gets even more revealing. There's a specific type of person who feels deeply calmed by black. And it's not who most people think. It's not always the sad person. It's often the person whose brain processes the world at a higher intensity. The person who notices everything, absorbs everything, and gets mentally tired faster than they admit. And once you see that, you realize something shocking. Loving black might not mean you're depressed. It might mean your mind is protecting itself. In the next part, I'm going to explain exactly how black becomes a form of emotional regulation and why some people feel more peaceful in darkness than in brightness. Most people think color preference is about taste. Psychology says it's often about regulation, because when someone is deeply drawn to black, it's rarely random. It's usually connected to how their nervous system reacts to the world. Some minds don't experience life at a normal volume. They experience it louder, more input, more noise, more emotional signals, more micro details they can't turn off. Bright colors don't just look bright to these people, they feel loud. So black becomes silence. And silence, for a sensitive nervous system, isn't emptiness, it's relief. Here's the part that surprises people. For many individuals, black works like emotional noise canceling. It reduces visual stimulation. It lowers decision fatigue. It creates predictability in an unpredictable environment. And predictability equals safety. This is why people who love black often describe it the same way: calming, grounding, clear. It creates predictability in an unpredictable environment, and predictability equals safety. This is why people who love black often describe it the same way: calming, grounding, clear. Not exciting, not dramatic, clear. Psychology links this to something called sensory regulation. When your brain processes more information than average, it looks for ways to reduce input, not add to it. So instead of seeking stimulation, you seek control. Not control over people, control over exposure. And black does that beautifully. It doesn't compete. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't change its personality depending on the room. It stays consistent. That consistency gives the nervous system something rare, a place to rest. This is also why many people who love black dislike clutter, chaos, and visual overload. Not because they're rigid, but because their mind is already busy enough. Here's another uncomfortable truth.
People who feel deeply are often mistaken for people who feel negatively. But depth doesn't mean sadness, it means intensity. And intensity needs boundaries. Black is one of those boundaries. It's a way of saying, I decide what enters my inner world. And this connects to something even deeper. Studies on emotional self-regulation show that people who actively reduce stimulation tend to have higher emotional awareness, not lower. They don't avoid feelings, they manage them, which flips the stereotype completely. Because maybe loving black isn't about hiding from emotion. Maybe it's about respecting it. But there's still something most people miss. There's a hidden psychological trait that often appears in people drawn to black, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's what we'll talk about next. There's a trait that quietly shows up again and again in people who feel drawn to black. It's not sadness. It's not pessimism. It's self-definition. People who love black often care deeply about one thing. There's a trait that quietly shows up again and again in people who feel drawn to black. It's not sadness. It's not pessimism. It's self-definition. People who love black often care deeply about one thing, deciding for themselves who they are, instead of letting the world decide for them. Black doesn't send mixed signals. It doesn't explain you. It doesn't perform your personality for others. And that's intentional. Psychologists often associate this with people who value internal identity over external validation. They don't need colors to speak for them. They don't need visual noise to feel interesting. In fact, many of them are highly perceptive. They read rooms quickly. They notice emotional shifts instantly. They sense judgment before it's spoken. So they choose black not to disappear, but to filter, to control what gets projected onto them, to reduce assumptions, to stay emotionally neutral while their inner world stays complex. Here's the paradox. People think black hides personality, but for many people, black is what protects it. And that leads to the final truth most people miss. Loving black doesn't mean you see life as dark. It often means you see life clearly. You understand how chaotic the world can be, how loud expectations get, how draining constant stimulation feels. So you choose simplicity on the outside to preserve depth on the inside. Black becomes a quiet agreement with yourself. I don't need to prove who I am. I don't need to be constantly visible. I don't need noise to feel real. And maybe that's why black feels safe to so many people. Not because they're empty, but because they're full. Full of thoughts, full of awareness, full of meaning that doesn't need decoration. So if you've ever felt calm in dark spaces, or grounded in minimal environments, or more yourself when the world gets quiet, there's nothing wrong with you. Your mind just values clarity over chaos. And if this resonated with you, I'm curious, does block make you feel hidden or finally at peace?